What do we want to do? We want to make sure that the next time they think about buying or selling in any market, they're thinking of you. And I have to be looking at Martha, so they're looking at Martha to do that for her, or Susan or PJ. Okay, so so this hopefully today will also inspire many, many good questions. And we've got a lot of folks on the line that also bring expertise to the table, and we'll be calling on them as well. So again, I see Nancy, Joe, Denise, if you guys leave me early, I've got your names, right? And they can help out as well. Jean, I'm on the first screen, so if we have other sales directors on the next screen, I haven't slid yet. I think we're into 3 screens now with 67 people on the line and a couple conference rooms full. So that's awesome. So let's, without further ado, go ahead and get our screen shared, Denise, if you want to pull that up and take it away.
Wow, this is going to be fun. The reason we put the why to this class is that agents are asking for it. So the sense that we have is that there's less confidence around pricing right now, and we want to help you agents to have some confidence around your pricing strategies and what you're telling your buyers, your sellers, how you're messaging the market to them, and really setting them up. Setting the expectations is one of the big things that's important right now, particularly for sellers. They aren't really aware that we are in a shifting market. They're still listening to the national news and hearing the crazy and, $100,000 over list. And so we want to message to them the real market, the real local market for them, and prepare them for what they can expect when we put their house on the market.
And Denise, would it be true that we're also sort of hearing both, right? The seller's still stuck, they're hearing on the national news that they're stuck in this, crazy market that's still accelerating. And then you've got the flip side of it, where we've got all these folks out there and these sellers that tend to think that the crash is happening. It's going to be just like 2008. So we have these two scenarios happening out there. And so we want to be able to speak intelligently to both of those too.
Right. One of the things that one of our agents was in a group, it was Holly Taylor, was in a group talking to 2 other agents, or they were at lunch or something with 2 other agents that, I don't know if they're affiliated with us or not, but somebody asked them how's the market? And one of them said, okay. And the other one said, yeah, it's crazy. And Holly Taylor was like, well, actually, this is the market. And really then rattled off all this stuff. And that was very impactful to the person that she was talking to. So that's what this is all about for you guys, is to give you talking points. So if you have questions, please put them in chat or comments, something. If you have some verbiage that you use or a tagline that you use that you find is helpful, go ahead and put it in chat. And Rebecca, you can monitor that because I can't see chat. Okay.
You bet.
Great, thank you. All right. So the first thing is to educate yourself on the market, right? And with this market, we used to do CMAs that we went out 6 months to a year, right? Now we really need to stay at 90 days because it is shifting that fast. So a comp from 6 months ago is not a comp. Let's look at 90 days forward. So as far as stats go, I feel like that is important. So look 90 days back. What's the current days on market average? So you can go average or median, excuse me, on this. And when you're looking at your stats, make sure you go average, because average is taking all those numbers and then, dividing by those numbers, and you actually get the average number. Median numbers take the low number to the high number, and then they find the exact middle of that. So median is not necessarily good, because you might have 150 days on the market, 0 days on the market, and it's gonna pick right in the middle. It's gonna pick 75 days as the median, which isn't, it doesn't work, right? So go ahead and do averages when you're pulling these numbers. The other one that's important is the list price to sold price. Because we were seeing, 110%, ratio of list price to sold price. In my market, it's now down to 103 or 102.5. So you can feel the slowing, right? You can feel what's happening is the over list price is starting to come down. And then the absorption rate, how many houses are on the market? How long is it going to take for the market to absorb what's currently on the market? So, it could be a month, absorption rate of 1 month. It could be, 2 months. It used to be, in other markets, we were looking at an absorption rate of 4 months. So paying attention to that too is important.
And on that absorption rate, Denise,
yeah,
back in January, February, March, we were having a lot of agents ask the question, is like, there's nothing on the market. There's nothing on the market. And so then something would come on the market and go right off the market. They were in many markets, there were a week or 2 weeks worth of listings that were being absorbed in, a day or 2 or 3 days. And so that absorption rate, and the list price to sold price ratio, those are what I'd say either are flattening, right? Or balancing now, so that we can get away from that crazy and to some degree less complicated. The listing agents were working very hard when you were receiving 20 or 30 offers to try and get those all lined up so the sellers could make an intelligent decision for themselves and their families.
Right, exactly. And that, to your point, the open house activity, what's happening with the open houses and then the offer activity. And so the open house activity, offer activity, and contingency trends, you're going to get this information from your peers in your office. Talk about these things, ask, how many people did you have at your open house? How many offers did you have? Find out this information because that's real live, your market data. When we've had, it was probably 4 weekends ago now, I had a property at a price point of 525 and another agent in the office had a price point of 275. I had one couple come to my open house. She had 25 come to her open house. So right there, we had market data of the 525, the $500,000 market is a little slow right now in Peterborough, New Hampshire area. But the 300 and unders, there's still a lot of buyers in that market. So that's helpful information too. And then, the contingency trends too. Again, talk about those and, it can stay confidential. You don't have to give names. You don't have to tell what you went under contract for, but give examples of, we had, 3 or 4 conventional loans. We did see an FHA. Not as many cash offers out there. And then, so talk about those things. Talk about inspections. Are buyers still waiving inspections? Are sellers more accepting of inspections right now? How are we dealing with that and what is being successful?
So Denise, in this marketplace, let me ask you a question. For you, it's been, I'm going to say for us, it's been 12 to 18 months with of this kind of, we didn't see contingencies. How long has it been for you?
Probably, I would agree, probably 2 years actually. I think that those contingencies started going away in the summer of 2020.
Okay, so just beware, we have brand new agents out in the marketplace that have been in the marketplace for 2 years or less. They have no idea how to write a contingency on these things. They have no idea about FHA or rural development types of financing. And so, you guys, those of you that are seasoned on this call, just beware of those agents that are writing those offers and that you're checking pre-quals, that you're calling lenders, that you're doing those types of activities for the best of your sellers. And for those of you on this call that have been in this marketplace less than 2 years as a licensee, You need to do your homework and get yourself up to speed on how to write these contingencies. So make sure you're plugged in and you're going to your business meetings. Make sure you're coaching with your sales directors. We have the resources to make sure that you have all the assistance that you need in writing a good, solid contingency. Or if you're selling a home, understanding those that are coming at you.
Right, agreed. You do in those home sale contingencies, right? And or suitable housing contingencies. So important. And where are they? You know, home sale contingencies in our market here, like listings literally say in the public remarks, will not accept home sale contingencies. And so talking to the sellers about that as well is important. So having that information on what's happening in your market. And then again, cash, cash, conventional, FHA, VA, collaborate with your peers, talk to the people in your office, talk to your sales director, talk to other agents even that are affiliated with other brokerages and just say, what's happening.
And then we also have, Jean has just put in chat that, we have in legal resources on TMG Connect, our attorney has written many contingencies out there all ready to go. And so those have been vetted. Zip Forms has them as well. So make sure you use those to your advantage. And if you don't understand them, please let us know. Yes, Mark Pilot, you're absolutely right. A clause library and Zip Forms. Maine and New Hampshire both have them, although New Hampshire's is a little thinner, but you certainly can go out to TMG Connect and the legal resource there.
Okay, so the next thing is educating your clients. Share. So this is advice. This isn't us telling you what to do, but this is what we know works. So we strongly suggest you use this. So share that market data at your first appointment when you're meeting with a client, a listing presentation or a buyer presentation. They aren't even a client yet. This will establish you as the expert. We don't need to keep this information secret and hide it in our back pocket until we go back to give them the CMA, right? So we always feel like we have to hold that little treat until they hire us or we give them their number. Share this out right at the beginning, because when you have this information and you're presenting it to them, you're preparing them for the big picture of what this is going to look like and where they're going to sit in it. And when they have that information and they percolate it between the time you're there and the time you come back, they're going to be more accepting of whatever your number is, your price range, right? They're going to have an idea of, okay, well, this is probably where I'm going to sit. And then they're going to trust your number because this data. It's not going to be, oh, I don't know what, the market's crazy or it's a seller's market. It's a seller's market. That's not very informative, right? There isn't much knowledge behind it's a farmer's market. I'm hungry. So you're not giving them anything of value when you just say it's a seller's market or a buyer's market.
Deliver this information with as much confidence as you possibly can, because they're not getting this. If they're having 2 or 3 other interviews with other agents, this is going to make you that expert. And so deliver it with a practice. Any of you that have been in any of my classes with some of the newer agents, I'm a big fan of practicing until you can't get it wrong. And so you want to be the expert, and a lot of that has to do with the confidence with which you deliver that information.
And that confidence comes from having that knowledge of what's really happening in your market. So for me, I pull my market stats every Thursday because I know I'm going to be having a lot of conversations over the weekend. And also by Thursday, you will have seen probably the under contracts from the previous weekend coming through or what's closed. If you missed this, the MLS stats reporting lunch and learns, please listen to the video, watch the videos of them. There's one for Rebecca did one for New Hampshire. for Maine, I did one for New Hampshire, and I also did one for Massachusetts. So go ahead and you can listen to them a couple of times until you get really comfortable with where those reports are and what those reports are telling you for information. Yeah, so educate your sphere and your community. So when you take this information now that you have, again, don't keep it a secret. Take it and share it out in your community when you're having conversations with people. Send it out to your CRM. So I wrote a letter a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago now, about the market. And what we're seeing for days on market, what we're seeing for the list to sold price ratios. Very conversational letter. It wasn't super formal, but I just said, I want you to, I want to share this. This is what's happening. I wasn't trying to sell to them. I was just saying, I want you to know. And the response to that was really fantastic. There were a lot of thank yous, and that was something that was easy to digest. So share that out. What I liked about that was then the people in my CRM or the community that I shared this information with, that when they were that weekend or whenever having coffee or at a cookout, the market comes up and they say, oh, well, Denise, I got something from Denise Whitney, and this is what's happening in Peterborough for numbers. And it's fantastic, because then that also gets you out there to all of their people, right? So this is kind of a way to be prospecting, but doing it on a higher professional level.
After the stats class, Denise, we actually had some agents that went ahead and took a screenshot of the local market stat and posted that right on Facebook, and that got a lot of traction and conversation going as well. So if you're at that same backyard barbecue or out to dinner with folks and someone says, hey, did you hear that, Denise had, did some work on that, Denise Whitney, right? And then you say, I think she put it on her Facebook page, and they can pull it right up. And then, because Denise is always a topic of conversation at the dinners. So that's information that's easily accessible for folks when they're just having a casual conversation.
That's a great idea, Rebecca. I like that. Okay. So talking points at your CMA presentation. We are going to share this slide deck out too. We're going to put it in chat when we break you out, so you have this to look at and work off of. So the market has shifted slightly, with demand still strong, but not as excessive as the last 18 months. That's an important message to get across. Supply and demand is still driving the seller's market and will continue to do so until the housing needs of the buyers are met or exceeded. And what's driving demand? We've all heard Chris talk about this too on his Friday intels or the all company calls, is that we have 3 generations of buyers in the market right now. Baby boomers are continuing to downsize or right size. Gen Xers are now in the market as buyers, and millennials are also entering the market. Any words on that, Rebecca?
Oh, I'm worded out.
Okay. So this is the national data talking points that you can talk about. Are multiple offers still happening? Yes. That's why smart pricing is so important, and a clear pricing strategy must be deployed to realize the full potential of a sales price. Are interest rates affecting the market? Yes. Some buyers have elected to remove themselves from the market, either in lower price range or just step back altogether, expecting a shift in rates, which we are already seeing a little bit of a dip in rates. So it's good. Just keep them informed of what the rates are. It's another way to touch them. Your buyers who've stepped back, you can reach out to them and say, hey, we have, there's an interest rate drop. It's now at this. And then shift in rates, which is again why we urge sellers to utilize smart pricing in this sensitive market. Is the market going to end in similar fashion to the crash in 2008? Rebecca, do you want to talk about this? And Chris speaks to this really well, but you do as well.
He sure does. And so, yeah, this is that what happened in 2008 was an entirely different set of circumstances. We had subprime, we had loans going to buyers who really didn't qualify. We had credit scores that were reduced so that more buyers could get into the marketplace. And then, those loans, you watch any of those movies that they did after this, the crash happened, the buying and the selling of those bad loans back and forth. And it all culminated into a crash, right? Well, we're not there today. Where we are today is low supply and high demand. And interest rates, yes, are increasing on that so that we can get inflation under control. But the circumstances are so very different now than they were in 2008. That needs to be a memory. And that's what we were talking about when we started this, Denise, is, that's the second line that's being talked about out in the national news a little bit, is like, well, this could be the crash, like the crash in 2008. And there could be another set of circumstances maybe that lead to some sort of a downturn in real estate, but it's not going to be like it was in 2008. And keep in mind that we've also just gone through, because of the crash in 2008, a reduction in the building supply, right? So a lot of our developers stopped producing subdivisions in 2008 to about 2013. So we lost somewhere in there 5 to 7 years worth of developments coming on the market. Those now are just starting to get traction. And so those builders are ramping up to meet some of that demand. But when you lose a decade worth of approved subdivisions and that kind of housing, we're way out of balance with what our supply and demand is. So we've got a very, very different marketplace today than we had in 2008.
Right, and I like to, when people talk about that, they say, oh, we're heading into a recession. My talking point is, well, perhaps we are, but the real estate is not heading into a recession. And then just giving them that, just what you said, Rebecca.
Right. And when Chris speaks to that too, that it's not heading into, that real estate is really at this point a subset of the economy, and it is now starting, it's become such a huge economy with all that goes along with it, right? Building supplies and, kitchen consultants and all of those types of things that has taken on a life of its own, and it is a subset of the economy. So what happens over here in this economy at large with, retail and some of those types of things, and what's going to happen over here with real estate, they'll be intertwined a little bit, but they're starting to separate more and more all the time.
Right. And with that, when you're talking about subdivisions, Rebecca, we need to look at our builder select program and start reaching out to these contractors and these old subdivisions that didn't make it, right? They just stopped because that new construction isn't going to stop. And maybe that's a market for some of you to start looking into reaching out to some contractors and getting involved in some subdivision growth.
And work on some land banks in a different, right? So find out all the vacant land in town, but also work with the town to see if there was a subdivision plan that was ever created for that has since, is no longer certified by the town. So you'd have to go back through some of the iterations on that. But it might be a great way to really find some businesses and get some subdivisions, and then make sure you are up to speed on our Builder Select program and all that brings to bear for you as an agent.
So here's some talking points. I will read these out to you because this is what I use when I'm going, and now I am presenting the CMA. I let them know that when I was doing your CMA, I've made certain to only go 90 days back and taking comparables, because what sold 6 months ago is not a comparable in this market. And I want you to be completely educated as to what is happening right now. So if it was possible, I did 90 days or less. If I had to pull some, we can talk about those individually and where I think that price of that property would be if it were on the market today. So, and then the other thing I do is I give them a price range. I say, so here's the lower number, here's the upper number. At the lower number, we may get multiple offers. You know, I never say we will get multiple offers because you don't want to set them up for that, right? We want to make sure that they understand that they might not have multiple offers at any price. So we're more likely to have higher interest at this lower price. If we go to the upper range, we may need to look at, we might be on the market for a little while, and we might be forced to do a price reduction. And the next thing I do is I tell them it's up to them. It's their choice how they want this to play out. Do they want it to be highly competitive? Do they want to test the market a little bit? But with the understanding that we're testing the market, but this is your choice, so that it's not on you if they take the high number and then, and then it does sit, right? They're making the choice on how they want this to work.
And we're back to that language a little bit too, that we talked about, right? So if they want to, here's the number, here's my low, here's my high, the high is just above, it's just going to miss that market. And if they want to go even higher than that, because their expectations aren't aligned with what's going on right now, the next thing to really think about is the language we used to use, and we're going to bring this back now, is, the most important time on the market is the first 14 to 30 days on the market. And so at the price point that you're talking about, we may be at 45 to 60 days on the market, right? So we've missed the most valuable time on the marketplace because we've outpaced ourselves. Then we have to do is start coming down to align the price with what's really actually happening in the marketplace. So this is what we call smart pricing, right? Is we really need to be aware of the decisions that we're making on pricing your home to make sure that we're working towards the goal of most amount of money in the shortest amount of time, right? We don't want to do most amount of money in the longest time possible. That's not a scenario that anybody wants to be in.
Right, and looking at that data as well, what do you see? How long are homes staying at that higher price before the sellers decide to do the price drop, right? Are they doing it a week after being on the market? Are they waiting 2 weeks, 30 days? Like what's trending right now as far as when that price drop happens? And then I think that would be valuable information too, because then you can also educate them to be in line with, I'm seeing the price drops in 14 days in my market. That's when I'm seeing it. So setting that expectation for them too, that if we don't have any activity in the first 10 to 14 days, we might need to, consider a price reduction.
And then a couple comments that we have coming in as well. Mark, I liked your comments here. Mark Pilot with the Auburn office, the sales director there. Agents and buyers should also be aware that rates in the 6% range are historically great rates. The low rates we have experienced were a bonus for so many, but remembering they were historic lows, and there's no benefit for buyers to wait for lower rates. But I fully agree that pricing is more critical now than it was over the last 2 years. And then Susan, then down to Bronwyn, is selective listening. I do talk about these issues, perhaps painting a lower number to get multiple offers. And I find sellers still hear what they want to hear. Yeah, I agree with you on that. They still do, and they still want to try that, which is why that coming back with them is, the most important time on the market is going to be your 7 to 30 or 14 to 30 days. Do you really want to miss that marketplace?
Right, and if we have that your local market data conversation at the listing presentation, you're less likely to have them have that selective hearing when you're doing the CMA presentation. Then I tell them what the current trends are in the market, like the pattern is that houses go on the market on Thursday, open house over the weekend, and then some scattered showings. And then we should be mindful of holiday weekends, because this year we're all free. We can travel, we can take vacations, and we don't want to go house shopping. We want to go to the beach. So that is happening. We are seeing some more quiet time on the weekends. Then setting the expectation that after the weekend, we're going to have some quiet time. probably until Thursday, because consumers still think it's gonna be gone after the weekend. They're gonna have multiple offers and it's gonna go under contract on Wednesday. So we're not even gonna bother. And there's that quiet time until Thursday again. And then their agent is calling you saying, hey, are you going under contract? What's the deal? And so then that second weekend tends to be, you get more showings scattered or doing another open house. And then, I mean, in my market, if it's priced right, then it's going under contract the next week. And that's basically what those slides said. So another thing that I wanted to really stress is offer deadlines. Offer deadlines can be great, or you can get burned by them. So if you set an offer deadline right at the get-go, and it's either in the public remarks or the non-public remarks, and then you don't get any offers, you're setting your seller's expectation up that there are going to be multiple offers and we're going to be making a choice on Tuesday. And then, and again, the consumers are going to say, oh, well, obviously, if there's already setting an offer deadline, it's going to go, so I'm not going to put my hat in the game. We've also seen instances where for me, I wait until I have an offer in hand because I don't like to be presumptuous that I'm going to get a whole bunch of them. So I wait till I have an offer in hand, and then the seller and I discuss, do we want to put an offer deadline on this? Or do we want to just keep it open? Because we have had instances where we've gotten offers in hand, we've set an offer deadline of Monday at 6, an offer comes in on Sunday that has an expiration of 5 p.m. Sunday night. Now you don't know what to do, right? Because this is a fantastic offer, but you publicly announced an offer deadline of Monday, so there might be an even better one coming in on Monday, but do you really want to let this one go? So, that's a conversation to have with your sellers. And, we also see written in there too, that, seller reserves the right to accept an offer prior to the deadline. And then, if you need to find a place to live, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, we can discuss suitable housing contingency plans should you decide to list with me. So for me, I do keep that nugget of information in that discussion for if they choose to list with me, because then you're getting into some confidential information with them and you might be putting them at risk. And that's all we have for slides, Rebecca.
All right, should we try a little role playing? Or questions? Does anybody have any questions? All right, why don't we stop share? And I think Angela is on tap here for a little role playing with me.
Yes, I'm going to be the seller, right? And
Right.
Rebecca is going to be the agent.
So we haven't practiced this other than the slides that we've all just seen. So I don't know what questions are coming at me, but I will set a scenario so that I can wrap Angela up a little bit here.
Okay.
In that we're doing a listing presentation. We've just taken a tour of the home. We're sitting down to go over maybe some of our marketing information, and the seller has a bunch of questions. So Angela, take it away.
So Rebecca, I just love to watch the news. I've been watching the news. I love everything about real estate, and I see houses are just flying. People are offering $100,000 more for a house, and they're getting multiple offers in it. How are we going to do this, Rebecca? Tell me, am I going to get $100,000 more for my house?
Well, Angela, I think that's a really good question and a perspective that might be a little behind where we are in the local marketplace, right? And so nationally, there are some places that, you know, they're still that white hot, that's the language there. I actually heard on the news last night, white hot real estate market, right? And so, what we want to do is take a look at the local market. And so we want to bring it right back down to where we are locally here. And so we are still in a seller's market, although I will tell you that we're seeing some balance come to the table on this. And there are some mitigating factors along with that, the reasons why that's happening. Some of that's the increase in the interest rate. So the affordability now of some of those buyers is starting to decline. And so maybe even some of those marginal buyers have left the marketplace at this point because either they couldn't afford now what may be a $400,000 house before, and now it's down to $325,000 or $350,000. And it may be, you know, that they've taken themselves out because they were hoping to find a product, if you will, that had granite hardwood floors and 2 acres of land. And that now is still at the $425,000 range. And so they're not going to settle for that $325,000 range. So I think we need to be really careful when we take a look at the pricing for your home. We're going to use what I call smart pricing for that to make sure that we're in balance with what's happening locally here and then meeting your expectations for that. So yes, I think with some of what you're hearing in the news nationally is what's happening in those white hot markets. Florida, Texas, some places in California. But right here now in Sanford, Maine, we're seeing that balance out a little bit. And so we're not in that white hot market anymore. That makes sense?
Yes, thank you for that information. I appreciate that. Now, I know that John, next door to me, right over there, next door to me, he put his house on the market and it sold in 2 days. And so can I expect that? Is my house going to sell tomorrow?
So I actually have taken a look at that, and that actually, John put his house on the market in March, and it did sell in 2 days, and it did pretty close to what you're talking about. It was $75,000 over asking price, right? And so the marketplace that we were in March was that white hot market, right? And so where we are today, and we're going to run all those numbers, but I will tell you that in the last 2 years in real estate, we've been seeing 20% appreciation in the marketplace in the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. We're not going to see that this year. The trend is that at this point is going to be in the Sanford market is going to be something in the 9 to 12% appreciation. Still pretty good, right? But what we don't want to do is set ourselves up for that $100,000 over asking in 2 days with many multiple offers. What we want to do really is set ourselves up to come into the marketplace with a really good product at a really good price. And then we can take a look at, you know, what those days on market are. And I'll come back with that analysis for you. I say, if we set it at this price, it looks like our days on market are here. And so how long it's going to take, that days on market is going to be how long it's going to take for us to get that offer and put it under contract. And if we set that price here, what those days on market actually looks like, and is that a risk we're willing to take? At the end of the day, Angela, you know, that decision is yours, but I want to make sure I arm you with the best information possible so you can make a really informed decision for you and your family.
No, thank you, Rebecca. I appreciate that. I have one more question. My friend Bronwyn has told me that she thinks that I should paint and really pick up and spruce up the house a little bit. She's telling me I'll get more money if I do that. What do you think I should do that, or just we have a housing shortage and people will just buy anything so that you can sell it like it is?
So yeah, and we've heard the same thing. And so again, there's going to be a balance there between what we're going to recommend that you do in the home and what you're looking for a price. And so when we come back with our pricing strategy, that smart pricing strategy for you, we can then talk about at this price range, no work done. At this price range, you better be looking at, you know, those Formica countertops probably ought to be upgraded to granite. And so some of those things. And then we can talk about what the balance is and what's right for you. Right? Do you want to withhold your home from the market for another month or 6 weeks? And keep in mind that this is, you know, we're in a changing marketplace. We need to have this conversation again in 6 weeks. And the pricing, smart pricing on that, because we are in a changing environment. And so the pricing we give you in a couple of days is going to be for the current market. So but we'll talk about all of those things certainly, and what staging and what work needs to be done. Does that make sense, Angela?
It does. Thank you, Rebecca. I appreciate it. I think we've run through quite a few questions there, and I love your answers. Great wording for people to be able to use.
Awesome. And so does anybody else have any questions that you'd like to hear some dialogue around?
I would say also check in the chat, Rebecca. There are a few there.
Yeah, mentioning that the house will need to appraise if they're financing, potentially appraise.
Right.
Right, that gets back to making sure that we get, well-written purchase and sales or offers that are coming our way.
And I like that what you talked about earlier too, about talking about some of the different financing. And if you are new and you haven't been around for some of this financing, right? What's great about some of this, the VA and the USDA and some of those are the really low down payments, the buyer paid closing costs, seller paid closing costs, asking for concessions, those kinds of things that you might not be seeing on your contracts, that you haven't seen on your contracts, but now you'll be seeing, and now you can use to some extent, depending on what's going on in your market as well. Because I'm hearing, as I'm listening to what's going on out there, I'm hearing more of those things happening again.
And I think it is a good point that, yes, if someone wants to go really high above our suggested price and get that listed, then the conversation needs to come into play with if we should get an offer that has a financing contingency on it. The next stage is going to be appraisal. And we may have to actually wait to find out what the sale price on your home is going to be, because the appraisal may come back $20,000 lower. And so you may not know the day we accept a contract where your house is going to sell. Is that a risk? Is that something that you're willing to sit and wait until we actually have an appraisal clear? So Lucian. You're muted.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'd like to share my experience that I had a listing presentation a few months back. Now, a little bit more stressful because the guy is a salesman, so he knows the stuff. He sells heavy equipment to towns, big bucks. But in either case, did my CMA, and I hate to use the word crazy. I know Denise doesn't like that word, but anyway, so my gut feeling is 250. Now, about a year and a half before, or 2 years before, I sold the house across the street for 159. So my gut feeling is 250. The CMA, the data, I can definitely go to 259.9. And I'm discussing this, with the seller. And naturally, he's a salesman. Ask more, we can work it down. So we ended up with 269.9. But then I go into the explanation that it has to appraise. If it doesn't appraise, we need to relate to it. And if it's close to the asking price, we should accept it. So 2 days, get an offer, 289.9. Surprise. Again, I have a conversation with my buyer, my seller, saying, well, personally, I don't think it's going to appraise, but you never know. It appraised for 282. I wrote it down here simply. 282,000, which I thought was great. I gave my seller a call. We had a discussion, and all of a sudden he surprised me. He's a salesman. Let's split the difference. He's getting 289, so much more than he ever expected, and he wants to split the amount. And but we had good rapport. I did talk to us. Listen, this is a done deal. If you sign your name, you're done. We wait for the, we just go to closing. And there was no inspection, which was great. Not something I recommend. But so anyway, things worked out fine, and we went to closing, and that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, thank you very much for that. It is amazing, setting those expectations up for the sellers right in that first meeting. I think it was good advice by Denise, so that you can have those frank conversations, So when it actually happens, right, sometimes it's difficult, but to say, you know, do you remember when we had that conversation up front, right? To go back to that, we talked about, we may find ourselves here, we are here now. And that may get them thinking, that may just be enough to get them thinking like it's time for them to back off that, you know, whatever that statement was, so.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. We're gonna go ahead and split you up into groups. There'll be 3 to 4 participants per room. We're gonna give you 5 minutes. We'd like you guys to go ahead and work on one of 2 scenarios. The one I just did with Angela, so it's a listing presentation and having some of those questions coming at you. And the other is the backyard barbecue. How's the market? Try and stay away from the word great, okay? Give a little more content. And so I see the participants are starting to drop off here. I see it happening right before my very eyes. So hang in there, folks,
Yeah,
for that piece.
before everybody jumps off, if you're not comfortable with role playing, don't just share
Right.
what works
Just
for you,
listen.
okay? It's okay, don't leave. We won't record you.
I do see some business support specialists on the line. I'll give them a pass if they would like to jump off at this point. That would be very fine. So we're down to 2 to 3 participants per room, and that number is falling every minute. So I'm going to get you where you need to go quickly before I lose any more of you. Hold tight one moment, please. There will be an invitation on your screen. Please accept the invitation.
Sorry to say, I